everyone. Okay, welcome to the 2014 Fall Poly Workshop. I am your presenter, Alejandro Hernandez, and I work currently at the Mokdong Magna campus. My goal for today is to not only help you to plan effectively, but also to have more confidence in your approach for lesson planning. Okay, I would like to start off with a quote of the day, okay, by Alexander Graham Bell, who once said, "Before anything else, preparation is the key to success." So I want you to keep that in mind when we have this presentation. Okay, now let's begin with this main idea question. Okay, now I would like to share some ideas of why I think lesson planning should be effective. The first one is to transition activities smoothly, as we mentioned. We want to make sure that we time ourselves well and that we move from one activity to another. The second reason to lesson plan is to establish solid communication with your students by meeting them at their level, by using the language, the target language that will help them be effective and in the classroom. Okay, the third reason is to create variety among different levels. As you know, there's different levels. There's a C, there's a B, there's an A level. So we want to make sure we modify our lesson plans according to the level of the students. The fourth reason is to strengthen in-class performance. The more consistent we are with lesson planning, the more ideas we have from the students, it will give them the confidence to do well. And our ultimate goal as a teacher is to prepare them for success. And we know that they have monthly tests every month, they have level tests. We want to make sure the more we lesson plan, the more we set them for success. Okay, now, I will introduce today's agenda. The very first thing I want to talk about is introduce the class management procedures, followed by the examine one model of effective teaching, differentiating lesson plans according to level, and finally, create an effective lesson plan in this class. And if you have enough time, wrap it up with Q&A. Okay. All right, a couple of things to keep in mind. As you already mentioned, as we all know, we have limited time. You can't just walk in there and expect their classes to go smoothly. As some of you already know, we have weekly quizzes, we have monthly quizzes, we have homework to check, we have e-poly. So just keep that in mind. Also, we know that nothing is perfect, so you can't expect your lessons to run smoothly. But in that case, don't panic, and just, if students don't respond, always make sure you have a backup plan. So, if you're new to your classrooms, okay, you might pose this question, okay? If you feel frustrated, where do you even begin? Okay. Now, here are some solutions that have worked for me in my classroom. Is in order to make a classroom more smooth and effective, this is what I recommend for the teachers, as you all know. Okay. Now, one, always plan ahead. As obvious as it seems, it is important that we all not only think for this week, but always think ahead. Think always the next week, the following week, and always look at the TL. Make sure that we know what to expect every week. Okay, second thing is get students organized. Okay, not only is it important for students to be organized, but also organize yourself. So make sure that you have a workable space and that you know where your books are every day. Third reason, establish classroom rules and expectations early. The sooner you get your rules into the classroom and the expectations, it will save you the headache later. So it is very important that you establish that. Okay, fourth, write classroom objectives on the board daily. Okay, even though it seems tedious, it actually does work. Okay, when students walk in every day, they will see the board and they will know exactly what to expect every single day. In my case, students do pay attention to these things. There have been times where I'm into my lesson and I forget to check homework, and then kids will always say, "Oh, teacher, why didn't you check homework? We already did that." So it shows that kids really respond when you write things on the board. Okay, the fifth thing is keep them engaged and motivated. Okay, depending on your campus, there's a different reward system, as you are familiar with. Anyone know what Class Dojo is? Yeah, very good. Kids really are competitive and they really want to be rewarded. And on a daily basis, they want to earn as many points as they can. There's positive reinforcement and, of course, negative reinforcement. It's always important that you let them know that what they're doing is right, but also what they're doing is wrong. Okay? Also, what I've done in my school is we keep a wall of the students' work. And kids do like to be recognized. Kids want to be praised by their teachers. Okay. Also, if you're not comfortable yet with lesson planning, it's also important that you pace yourself. So in this case, I recommend using a timer. At the beginning, if you have trouble with pacing yourselves and moving from one activity to another, it's a very effective tool. Okay? All right, with that in mind, I would like us to do our very first task, which is looking at the TLs in front of you. Okay, you have one. I want you to share it with your partner. Okay, I just want you to look carefully at the weekly schedule and textbook for October. Also examine the skills that they have to learn for reading, grammar, vocabulary, and then we'll share your ideas with the class. So I'll give you about a minute just to kind of look at it. Okay. All right. And what about the writing learning objectives? All right. Very good. All right. All right. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to our very next activity. This is where I want to spend most of our time discussing. This is what I think is the most important part of my lesson. Okay. It's called the linear model of effective planning. Now, I chose this model out of all of them because, as you all know, that students are impatient. Kids move around a lot. Kids want to be active. They want to move around. So I chose this one because it's very effective. It has worked for me. It's broken down into 3 sections. The first section is called the engage stage. The second one's called the study stage, and finally the activate stage. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what the engage stage is. Okay, this is the part of the lesson where you actually stimulate the students. You get them curious about the lesson. You make them excited about what they want to learn that day. Okay. Some activities also include games, tongue twisters, discussion, narration, stories, images, anything that kind of gets their attention drawn before you start the lesson. Okay. All right. This is the most important part of the lesson. This is where you focus on the target language, and you want to actually make sure that you are sticking with the objectives. You want to make sure that students are learning the material for that day. It also allows students to strengthen their abilities through language use. Okay, the activate stage is where students actually apply what they know. Okay, the goal isn't accuracy, but rather fluency. We want them to actually spend as much time as they can in practicing and applying the skills that they learn. Okay. With that in mind, also it's very important to note that not all stages will be used evenly, okay, which means depending on what lesson you're teaching that day, you might have to change or spend more time on the engage part, or might spend more time on the study part, or even spend more time on the activate part, depending on the level of your kids. Okay, it's also important that you can change the order as you feel fits your lesson. And of course, pacing is also very important. Okay, with that in mind, let's go ahead and look at a model lesson plan. Okay, so I structured it into 3 parts. We have the engage, the study, and then the activate. Okay, so I want you to pay close attention to the engage, and then I will ask you some questions.
Who is in this picture? Okay. People, okay, good. You're saying the right names. What else? Say it. Family. And? All right. Okay. Now, in one sentence, what do you think today's topic is going to be about? Okay, Peter, what do you think? Okay, good.
Okay, with that in mind, how did the students respond to the engage?
They were excited.
Okay. All right. Do you think they're anticipating what's going to happen in that lesson?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the goal. We want them to actually be excited about what they're learning for that day. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and look at the study part.
Lesson 2. Good. All right, now what we're going to do is
All right, it's also important to note that when we are actually reading to the kids, keep in mind their level. Okay, if they're very low level, we might want to do it more than one time. You might want to repeat yourselves again and again to make sure that they are saying the correct pronunciation. Now, for the older kids, you can actually do it in a faster pace. You can actually move around. You can actually, instead of going in order 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10, you can actually fast reading. And kids in a higher level really enjoy that. You can start with barbecue, then you can move there, and then you can jump around because they can't predict the order. It's fun for them, and it also engages them as well. Okay, now, I wrote some things on the board, which is lesson planning. Okay, so I always write the lesson on the very top, and I always keep behind here, I always keep a note, noun, verb, adjective. I don't want to just memorize the definitions. I want them to actually apply the word. So instead of just memorizing for a quiz, we have a fill in the blank quiz on my campus. And the way I do it is I make them count. Okay, all right, look at this. Okay, tell me how many nouns do you see? All right, how many verbs do you see? Okay, how many adjectives do you see? And by doing that, we can allow them to actually see how you put it together. And when we do that, we can actually practice together, we can make sentences. And that's the goal, is that we want them to actually use the words effectively and accurately. All right. Okay, with that in mind, let's watch the activate. In this video, what I did was, after they had actually practiced the words plenty of times in the class, I actually had them pick out a word from a cup. And by choosing the words from the cup, they were allowed to create a story with that. And that's why I put them in groups. And also the goal of Activate is teamwork. We actually want them to actually work together, interact, and communicate. And by putting them in groups, they're really passionate. They really want to learn for that lesson. And the goal here is not to interfere. We don't want to scaffold every single time. We actually want them to be on their own. We're only there to kind of monitor, make sure that they're on task. But the ultimate goal here is that let them just use the language as freely as possible and create a story out of it. Okay? So with that in mind, let's move on to task number 2. Okay? This is where I want you and your partner to try to see how you would connect the lesson. I only showed you the first part of the lesson. I want you and your partner to kind of discuss what goes in between. Okay, here I have the objectives for the day. I only showed you the guess what part of the lesson. I want you to see what you and your partner might do for this lesson, for the warm-up. And I showed you the word practice. I want to see what else you can come up with. What kind of activities you would do before you actually make a story part, and also include a wrap-up. How would you wrap up your lesson before the kids go home? Okay, so I'll give you about 5 minutes, just talk to each other and see what kind of ideas you can get. Okay? Let's begin.
They are, because my vocabulary and grammar tests come. If I get through, I don't even have the time to get through.
Okay, everyone, can I get your attention now? Okay, thank you very much. I kind of want to get some ideas from you. Can someone volunteer and share an idea? What would you do in this lesson as a warm-up?
Show some pictures of foods that might be, well, foods that are related in this whole thing.
Great.
And pictures, possibly even a video. I don't know if that's too much, but barbecue.
Okay. Anyone else? Sir.
Yeah, I might ask them, what's your favorite food? Beginning with that. What's your favorite food? Where do you like to eat? What kind of special places do you eat? Do you like to eat inside, outside?
Okay, great. So start by asking questions. That's very engaging. Okay, anybody else? All right, now this part of the lesson, all right, we actually want to connect the study part and the activate part. I only showed you how I start the study part. I didn't give you the rest. So I'm curious to see what kind of ideas you have when we actually, before we start the activate stage. Any ideas? Yes, sir.
Well, my partner actually had a good idea, because we saw the words on the board, and instead of just having you write the words, I guess a good transition would be to give the students hints and see if they can't tell you which words you should write from 1 to 10.
Okay, that's very good. Yes, sir.
I would jump right into whatever the TL says, because it's a 40-minute class. Let's not pretend we have a lot of time to do this.
Right, exactly.
And let's not pretend that the book, the work has to be done in the book, the corrections have to be made, and the parents, that's what they're paying for, right? So,
Yeah, make a very interesting point, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I gave the words, I would ask them to, if they could use it in 6 weeks, to start them off letting us know that, use sentence to introduce them to this.
Okay, exactly. Yes, sir.
I might show them examples, since we're about to do, for example, we're point out words and stuff, maybe show them a short, like 2 sentences I've created doing the same process, or create one from them, have a cup, the words available, and be like, well, we're about to create our own sentences using these words, and just so they have a visual of that, just that first demo of it.
Okay, exactly right. So we actually want to show them how to do the activate. We can't just assume they're going to know how to do it themselves. We got to, especially with the lower grades, we got to actually do a lot of demonstration. And so you make a very good point. Okay, also I did write in-class pages, 17, 18. So you made a very interesting point, sir. Okay, as much as we want to be super fancy with our lessons, there's a part we actually have to use a book. So I did start off with that, making sentences. Okay, use a verb, use a noun, see how many times they can actually make a sentence. We do in-class practice pages, and then once they have enough practice and they actually know how the sentences are connected, using context clues and things like that, then I think it allows them to easily put it together in a story. So just like this gentleman mentioned, you have to actually show them how to do it. And once you show them how to do it, and then you let them start the lesson. Okay, any ideas for the wrap-up? Yes, ma'am.
What I usually do with all my vocab classes, I make them close their books. I start giving them definitions and have them shout the answers at me.
Okay.
And then if they already answered, then they can't answer until everyone else in the class has answered the question. And they think it's a game, it's not a game.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
I review what I do.
Okay, as a review, exactly right. Yes, sir.
If they would have just made like 20 stories, I'd see if anyone would like to scan up and present their stories.
Exactly. And also depending on the time, we have very limited time. We have to check homework and everything like that. But depending on how much time you have for that day, you actually want them to use what they know. Okay, do we spend a lot of time on wrap-up? But how many minutes do you think we need to spend on wrap-up? At most, I would say 3 minutes most, okay? And also keep in mind, the kids are going home that day. So I actually used this class, it was the last class before they had to go home. So you also keep in mind, it's not 45 minutes, sometimes it's 42 minutes. Then you have to actually wrap up and get them ready to go. So there's a lot of things to consider with the younger kids, right? Okay, let's move on to the last part of our lesson, which is differentiating lesson plans. As you know, you can't lesson plan the same way with the younger kids as we do with the older kids. So I want to go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so for lower grades, as you saw in the video, okay, kids really react to audio-visual techniques. Okay, so depending on the level, especially MGT1 or GT1 kids, they need a lot of structure. You want them to actually go up there, you want to actually write everything you're saying. So as you're talking, you spell out the words. So it's a good technique for them to actually memorize the spelling and to recognize it when they see it. I try as carefully as possible to convey my ideas very carefully. As you saw in the video, I slow down my speech. And I have to do that with the lower kids. But with so for them, the main goal is communication. Get them to actually respond to you. All right. For the middle grades, okay, less audiovisual techniques will be required, but sometimes it can be very engaging. Okay, it doesn't have to be the main point or the main idea of your lesson to be as visual as you can. But if you have it sometimes, kids will respond to it. And of course, kids love PowerPoint. Kids love short videos. They love all those sort of things. But as you know, once you get to 3rd grade or 4th grade, these kids, they work faster. And the more practice they got in writing, the faster they get through the book pages. So in that case, I always make sure I have supplementary material just in case, if they burn through the book very quickly. So, but also the important goal is to actually use scaffold, but not as much. You actually let them do it. If they have questions, you walk around, you monitor, and answer their questions, things like that. Okay? Finally, the upper grades, once you get to GT4, GT5 level, kids at that point, you can speed up your speech. You can actually communicate faster. You can say what you need to say, and it takes less time. Also, no audiovisual techniques are needed, but if you want to include that, which would be fine as well, but it should not be the focus of the lesson. Also, spend less time in the study stage, more time in the activate stage. Once they're at that level, the kids want to participate, they want to work in groups, they want to actually do it. Okay, you don't want to lecture for 25 minutes on something. You actually want them to do something, and I think kids really want that. Okay, the main goal to emphasize is to independence and teamwork. You want them to actually accomplish something that day. Before they go home, you want them to learn and apply the tools that they learned for that day. Okay, all right. With that in mind, the dreadful part of our lesson, hopefully not so dreadful, but I would like you and your groups to actually make a lesson plan. The way it's going to work, I divide into 3 sections, okay? This side will be GT1, this side will be GT3, GT5, like that. This side, far end, will be GT1, GT3, and GT5. What I'd like you to do, just with the information that we have today, see what kind of ideas you can come up with. If you look at your lesson plan, it says, you don't have to worry too much about the first part, but just what would you do for the engage part, the study part, and the activate part? So I would like you to brainstorm. If you would like to work with the group behind you, and you can work in 4s because you have the same lesson plan, feel free to do that. Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes of class time to come up with a lesson plan. Okay, begin. Anyway, all right. Okay. Now that I have some time to discipline, I would like you to share some of your ideas for the 3 stages: engage, study, and activate. So let's start with the GT1 groups. What would you do for the engage part of the lesson for vocabulary? Yes, ma'am.
We thought about, ours was my own wedding, so we thought about maybe playing some wedding music when they first come in, or when we first come in, and then showing some photos, and while you're showing the photos, ask them like, have you ever been to a wedding?
It's very engaging, very good. Any other ideas? Yes, sir.
I think, like, going on with what that lesson was, while the wedding music's playing, you could even have, like, 2 kids walk down the aisle. Because the GT1 kids, like, they're still friends, like, boys and girls.
Yeah.
So, like, the GT3 and GT5 are, you know, separate. But the GT1s, they like, hold hands sometimes. They play with each other. So it'd be kind of funny to have them walk. Like, who's the bride? Who's the groom?
Right.
Where are they going? Stuff like that.
Okay, very good. Okay, any ideas from this side? The engaged part. Okay, what about the study part of the lesson?
Have them complete.
Okay, continue. Yes, very good. Okay, the last thing I want to do is, you've been a great audience. Thank you very much. I do want to stop and any particular questions about today's lesson, or if you could please share some ideas on how to kind of speed up the lesson, or in a way you can transition better. Any ideas? Yes, sir.
I just have a question.
Yes.
My biggest thing is, I guess, if I assign homework to kids, just holding kids accountable for it as well. So I'd like to be able to structure my lesson with this. So how do I keep my kids more accountable for material, like learning strategies, upon like homework assignment that will make sure that comes back to you finished. More often or not, I find that it doesn't.
Right.
And then they're behind because now I don't have that work.
Right.
I'm curious about that.
Okay. As I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, what has worked for our campus is they really are competitive. So kids really strive on being the best in the class. So we do like superstar of the month. We do like we try to like choose who's the best student or the most improved student of the week, even though like they're a really quiet kid. If you praise them enough, like say, I really like how you're raising your hand when you ask questions, or I really like how you're working quietly. You always praise them for even little things. Kids really like that. So if you do that, it'll show that there's mutual respect for a teacher to student. So that's what I would do.
I think the students he's talking about are the less motivated students, not the ones who are on the brink of being student of the month. These are the students, you're talking about students.
The lower of the...
Just don't care. Come on, they're out there, right?
Yes.
They're out there.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So how do you keep them accountable?
It is hard to motivate everyone, and as many years of experience as you might have, it's impossible to motivate everyone. But the best you can do is, like I was saying, even if they're not the best, more productive kid in the class, I do praise them for everything. And there's kids that will respond to that, some may not, but you just got to be consistent and just let them know you care about them, and just be like, all right, you did a good job today. Oh, you completed a sentence today. I'm very happy. You did a good job. You just got to praise them.
The less motivated students, I mean, I think just about everybody is going to praise them for anything.
Right.
But yeah, his question, I think, was more aimed at those kids and how to deal with it.
That's something we all are trying to figure out, even though. All right, you've been such a great audience. Thank you so much.